Hey everyone, welcome back to our show, A Link Between Oracles. Yes, that's what we're calling it. We finally have a title. This is Blind Wolf and Jachariah with me. We are here talking about the Oracle of Ages and Seasons games from Zelda. We came up with a really clever title because obviously we are linked between these Oracle games. Isn't that right, Jack?
That is correct. I am currently in one where the weather changes all the time.
Yes, and I'm in one where I have the power to change the time.
You are Marty McFlying it around this kingdom.
The future! It's awesome. Okay, so in our last episode, we gave a little introduction to ourselves and also to our experiences with Zelda games, as well as an introduction to the Oracle games, how they were released, how they're separate cartridges. They work together singularly, but also come together as one plot. I don't know if any of that made sense. Point being, we're playing these games together, and we are about to talk about our first set of dungeons, which, for me, are the Spirit's Grave and the Wing Dungeon. Jack, do you know what your dungeons are?
It was the Gnarled Root dungeon.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the second one?
The second one is the Snake's Remains.
Snake's Remains?
Yes.
Yikes. Okay, cool. So we referred to this last time that Oracle of Seasons is actually chronologically the first game in these set of games. So Jack is going to start us out with his dungeons. We're just going to kind of explain what we liked about them, what we didn't like about them, how they kind of flowed, and what was exclusive about each of these dungeons. So if you want to start out with where we left off the story with Oracle of Seasons.
Yeah, so I was talking to the Maku tree, and he's literally just like, here's a key. Take it. Go to the first dungeon. It's north of here. And so you walk up, and there's like a tree that is sunk into the ground, and there's a little keyhole by it, and you just put it in, and there's really no puzzle to it.
Wow.
It's really nice. It's just like, here's your first dungeon. You literally have, I believe, only a sword if you haven't saved up to get a shield by now. So that's where you are. You go into this dungeon, and you like push a block aside, and the first room you get to is an old man who's like, relight the torches. And so you're like, I have no way of doing that. So you kind of stumble around this dungeon for a while, just defeating enemies and all that. And then you get bombs out of a chest, I believe. And that should be the first sign for anyone who's played a Zelda game that if you can't progress anymore, you've missed a wall to blow up.
Right.
And sure enough, the one area of the room that I didn't fully go span the camera up to see, that's where this door was. And so I blew it up, found the Ember Seeds and a seed satchel, and then progressed through by lighting a bunch of torches and stuff. And there was a few more keys. There's a lot of enemies in this dungeon for that. There's Stalfos's, I think they're called likes, but they might just be, no, the Zols, the little slimy guys.
Sure, okay.
And there's bats and a few others. This dungeon saw the first use of mine carts.
Yeah.
So that's always fun.
Really, in the first dungeon?
In the first dungeon, there's a minecart and a switch, and that's like I think that's the biggest puzzle in this dungeon for sure. And then you get to the mini boss, and it's two moblins who attack you at the same time with boomerangs, and I died.
Yikes.
Because I didn't have a lot of health before going in, and I just got hit with one boomerang out of someone off screen. And then after you beat them, a little portal opens, which gives you passage back to the beginning of the dungeon.
Right.
And it continued on a little more. And I found the boss key, which, unfortunately, unlike A Link to the Past, only opens the boss door. It doesn't open the item chest, which is always very rewarding when you make your way back to the chest. And there was a very familiar boss from Zelda games, especially Zelda 1.
Uh-oh. What? Oh my gosh, yeah, that's like the first one, huh?
So, Aquamentus
is
his name. It's a flying dragon who shoots Oreos at you, or Cheerios at you.
Cheerios?
Yeah, they look like Cheerios. And you have to attack his horn. And pretty easy boss fight. Nothing too crazy. Apparently he can charge you, I guess. But that
he
never...
didn't do that to you?
No, I think I beat him too fast.
There you go.
And I got the first of 8 essences of nature, which was the fertile soil, which helps things grow in nature and nurture and all that all that jazz. I got a heart container, and that was the first dungeon.
Nice.
So how did your first dungeon go?
So the first dungeon here was pretty interesting. The Meiku tree, who is the kawaii female tree, told me to go to this graveyard, which I went to. And I thought that was kind of weird and interesting and unique because you don't... I mean, usually there is a graveyard in Zelda games, but you don't usually do much in it until at least, like, midway through. Mm-hmm. So I found that to be really interesting, that it was the first thing to do. So I go to this graveyard, I found these boys who are very frightened and worried that they're going to run into a ghost and tell Link, basically, that, you know, that there's a spot under a tree where you can go under and see, like, this graveyard or this grave. So Link goes in there, you find the key to the dungeon, which is actually just a key to a gate in the cemetery. So you enter this gate, you go around, and you enter into the actual spirit's grave, which ends up being the first dungeon here. I thought the dungeon was pretty straightforward. I thought it was a really good introduction to dungeons for someone who may be picking up a Zelda game for the first time. Not a lot really going on that's too interesting or challenging, really. You do pick up the first item here, which is the level 1 power ring, which is nice. Now you can pick up things that are too heavy.
Interesting. You got that first.
Yeah, that's a first. What was the item in...
It was the seed satchel.
Oh.
So I got ember seeds.
Gotcha.
That light trees on fire and can light, like, embers.
Somewhere through the beginning, I already got those, I believe. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it hasn't happened yet. I might be getting it mixed up. But the power ring was really the thing in here. That was like the main item. Mm-hmm. So progressing through puzzles, again, not too hard. There was like some invisible bridges that you form and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're like a little moving thing across a gap. Obviously, you can't jump across anything yet. Here, you get the little seed, the Gasha seed, seed,
yeah.
whatever you call it. Is Gasha seed? Is that what it is?
I think it's Gasha seed.
There you go. Okay, I think you're right. The first mini boss you fight is this giant genie who is this like fat little ghost guy who has these little ghost guys with him, and the little ghost guys will come at you and attack you, and if you don't hit them, they will like adhere themselves to you and like try to hold you back.
Will they slow you down?
Yeah, they'll try to. Yeah. Very annoying.
Hate that.
Yeah, but he's pretty easy and just a fatty ghoul, and you just hit him and he dies. I mean, it wasn't that bad. Progressing through, you have the power bracelet, so you can lift up jars, which is cool. I think it's so interesting because I started playing Ocarina of Time, and it's like you just pick up a fucking jar in that game. In these games, it's like you need to like be able to lift heavy things.
You don't understand what those jars are made out of.
Yeah,
they
apparently.
That's why people keep rupees in them. They can't be just picked up and taken off by any schmuck. Apparently,
yeah. In Ocarina of Time, it's like they're made out of paper. So you're going through, and the first wall master you see is in this dungeon, which is always terrifying. Yeah, exactly. But he's actually right towards the end, right before you open the dungeon or the boss room.
A wall master, for anyone who doesn't know, is a hand that comes out of the floor, grabs you, and puts you back at the beginning of the dungeon, making you have to traverse everything again, and usually it resets the enemies as well.
Yeah. And the great thing about wall masters is you can kill them, but then they'll just come right back. So, yeah. Delicious. The boss here was, like, awesome. I was so stoked because it was this boss called Pumpkinhead, which is basically just, like, this, like, gentlemanly-looking fellow who has a pumpkin for a head. So he doesn't really do much. He just kind of, like, walks around like a zombie. So, like, he's not that scary or anything. But you hit him, his body falls off. Well, I guess his head falls off and his body disappears. And then you lift up the pumpkin head and throw it across the room. And there's a little ghost inside the pumpkin head who comes out. And apparently that's the actual boss. So you have to hit that guy. And then you beat him, and you get the first Essence of Time. And that is pretty much the first dungeon. After you get the Essence of Time, you're warned about the second dungeon. The Meiku tree can communicate to you somehow through thin air.
Yeah, it's the power of the Meiku tree.
There you go. And the next one would be in the Western Woods. So that was my first dungeon. Overall, pretty cool. Very good intro, I said.
Yeah, there are very good intro levels to people who haven't played Zelda. For anyone who has played at least this style of Zelda, it's just a quick you're through.
Very easy.
Now here's my question.
Yeah.
Did you immediately come outside and meet a witch?
No. Oh, yes.
Okay. So, this is the first semblance of the trade quest for the Oracle games, is Maple the Witch's Apprentice. Or it's Maple, because she's the apprentice of Syrup.
Syrup, right? It's such a Dragon Ball thing going on.
And, I love Maple in this game because she pops up when you least expect it and at random times, and you can get really good rings that she might drop. And rings are equipable passive upgrades that do certain things. So far, probably we haven't got any of the really cool ones, but they eventually get pretty decent and pretty cool. There are a couple that are really worthwhile, and you get bigger boxes so you can equip more at the same time.
Gotcha.
But Maple runs into you and she's like, I'll remember this, you'll regret this day. And the next time you run into her, she mentions the item that you need to progress your trade quest with. So in my instance, I first had to I forgot what I first had to do. I first did something and it gave me I lit a torch in this guy's study, and he gave me his lifelong work of cuckoos. He had been studying cuckoos. And then you take that to Malin's house, because Malin and Talon are in this game. They raise chickens.
What?
And she gives you a Lon egg, which is all the rage with all the girls. And the next time you run into Maple, she will give you a ghastly-looking child doll. And basically it goes, I'm going to take this egg because you're a boy and you don't need it. Here's this doll. And then that's as far as I got on my trade quest. So that kind of is the introduction to the fact that she plays a bigger part in this, at least the side quests of the story. Plus she drops some really good loot, and it's always nice. I love running into her is always this fun game of who can get the best thing fastest.
I thought the ring system was actually really interesting too. It's something that was new for me as well. And I thought that was pretty cool. I already got a couple pretty cool ones. There was one that was like, your sword damage is increased, but also the damage you take is increased.
Oh, wow. I literally have found 2.
I think there's 3 or 4 that I found so far. It might have been also in the second dungeon as well. But the other one was like, small rocks can't hurt you, so I think it's like Octoroks if they shoot at you. So I equipped that one. So
I currently have that one equipped as well.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most useful thing right now. But I really like that system. I think it's interesting, and I'm glad to hear that eventually you'll get more boxes and you could equip more of them. So yeah, let's move on though to what you did after that, since I just finished my dungeon up. What was the second one in betweens before that? All right,
so the in-between is actually my favorite thing, and one of the reasons why I love Seasons so much is you are palling around and you're exploring and you're doing your trade quests and whatnot, and you go and burn the trees because you have the ember seeds and go east of the village. And this bluesy looking motherfucker over there.
What's that?
He's just got a guitar and some like jazz shades, and he like stops you and is like, "Hey, the Temple of Seasons is still in this world, but you might need to find the way to it because it might not be accessible from here." And you go left a couple screens and you run into this shrouded figure in a yellow cloak with a bow on her head.
Okay.
And she exclaims out loud, "Oh no, I have to get back to this secret place with this key. I hope nobody follows me." And so of course you follow.
Of course.
Because as Link you are slightly creepy in your adventurous nature. And you have to avoid getting caught by her as she runs around these trees from screen to screen. And you eventually follow her to a portal. And the portal leads to the land of Subrosia. And Subrosia is the subterranean world, as far as I can tell, that is filled with lava and these creatures that can bathe in lava, and they all wear cloaks like her, except they're all in green, I think, and some in red. I think she's just yellow because she's important.
Gotcha.
To the story, I guess.
Single her out.
Yeah. And you're in this underground land, and this is really cool because I got the boomerang.
Oh my god, what?
Yeah, I went and found a dance hall and did a dance sequence, and they gave me a boomerang. So now I have a boomerang, which is so wonderful.
That's awesome.
And then I don't know if you need the boomerang. I think the boomerang is optional, much like it was in Awakening. So it was cool to find it that early. And then you walk around, there's some there's a whole new currency system in this world called ore. So you have to dig it up, and you don't currently have a shovel, so you can't do anything with it. And then there's some locked doors, and you find the Temple of Seasons. And you walk in, and they give you the Rod of Seasons, which is something that can be used to basically fill one of the jewels on it with the essence of the season, like the spirits. One of the jewels on it that is essentially can channel the power of the spirit of the seasons, because there's a spirit for each season, and you can only access winter right now.
Gotcha.
So you go get the winter power, and then you leave Subrosia, and your winter power does two things. It makes these certain trees wither up so you can pass by them without being hindered, and it also creates like piles of snow that you can walk between. So that added some heart containers to my stuff, and I found this house that Santa was wanted. Like, only Santa may enter. So I made some snow and jumped down the chimney, and this lady was like, well, you're not Santa, so make yourself useful, grab this shovel, and dig the snow out in front of my house. And from there, it leads you into the second dungeon.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I got the shovel as well earlier from a construction site that apparently, back in the past, in this village now, all these workers are basically being, like, slave labored into building this tower for Varen the Sorceress. Very creepy. And one of them is like, oh, well, here, help dig this shovel with this shovel. I was like, okay, cool. I was like, I'm not going to do that, but I am going to leave with this shovel. So, okay, coming into the second dungeon, you said the Snake's Remains, is that correct?
Yeah, it was the Snake Remains. And, I also found some mystery seeds.
Oh, nice, okay. Right.
Mystery seeds allow you to talk to owl statues if you are lost or need help. I have not used them yet, as the dungeons have been pretty basic and easy. I don't think I'm going to have that much problems, as Seasons is the more action-oriented one, and Ages is the more puzzle-based one. But there are little thwomps, that are kind of basic enemies. There's a few, my least favorite enemy of all. They're called pole voices. They are these enemies. If I can find, it will show up. It's the little, God, what are they called? The little skull and crossbone assholes that can't be killed,
like
run the...
In A Link to the Past, they were anti-fairies.
Yeah.
You put magic powder on them and they turned into fairies that you could, like... You didn't know that? If you use magic powder on them, like, right at the right moment, they turn into fairies that you could bottle up. Jack is so upset upon hearing this information.
Yeah, I was actually wrong. Pole's voices are the bunny...
Right.
The bunny enemies.
Yes.
But, so they have anti-fairies and they suck. And I don't think the magic powder exists in this game.
Yeah. In Link's Awakening, if you used it, they didn't turn into fairies, but they did burn and die, which was nice.
Mm-hmm. There was a cool secret room. The blocks are all kind of angled in an arrow, and it is like, oh, put a bomb here. There's no crack in the wall, which is really nice, because having all of the secret rooms be hidden by crack in the walls makes them not secret.
Sure.
This one was great. It added about 200 rupees to my total.
Wow.
So that was awesome. I can't wait to actually need to spend something. And then I picked up the power bracelet by... there's a room that you can't jump over this gap, and you have to blow them up with these two moblins on the other side with bombs to get the chest to show up. It makes it a lot easier when you have the boomerang to stun them and just toss a bomb over afterwards.
Nice.
So I got the power bracelet. That opened up a bunch of things. And this really cool... I like this idea of a puzzle. It's a long row of something heavy, like a row cylinder, and you have to push it enough length so that you have enough time to get around the puzzle before it comes back. So that's really nice. And another thing about this dungeon is it led me outside twice.
Huh.
So one of them just gave me a Gasha seed. Another one led to an actual area where I needed to go to get the final key. And that was really cool. I actually really like that it's kind of a Link to the Past-ness of where there were certain dungeons where you would go outside and have to go into another entrance.
Sure, yeah.
Just to, like, it makes the world feel a little more, like, alive and not necessarily this dungeon has one entrance because it's the dungeon and you'll be in here.
Totally.
And I think that's all of the really important stuff along the way. There was a mini boss that was the face facade. Shows back up. He's a Link's Awakening boss. He shows up on the floor. You gotta beat him with the bombs.
That guy, yes.
And then boss number 2 was Dodongo, and it was really cool. Pretty much so far, I've taken the fact that the bosses in Oracle of Seasons are reflecting original Zelda.
It's true.
Very, very heavily.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad thing.
No. That's pretty cool because it's actually like a throwback.
Yeah. So far, I have encountered a boss that is new. The mini bosses have been similar to Link's Awakening bosses, so I've been finding that pretty cool. And made quick work of him, throwing a bomb at him so he's disabled, and then you gotta throw him onto a spike trap in the center. And I got the second Essence of Nature, the Gift of Time, which
Very
helps
cool.
things grow.
Help things grow. Okay, cool. Very awesome. So after my first dungeon, I headed into the Western Woods. And here we meet these fairies, these forest fairies. There's 3 of them, and you stumble upon them, and then they divide and basically say, you have to find each one of us or else we won't let you pass. And it's like, what's not letting me get past? I could just walk onto the next screen. And you do walk to the next screen, and you're in a different part of the forest because they totally jumbled everything. So it's another puzzle, a classic Lost Woods puzzle where you have to walk through different sides of the screen, scroll through different zones, and try to find your way into these areas that you know where they're hidden, but you have to find your way to that screen. So actually didn't take me too long. It took me maybe less than 5 minutes. So it wasn't too much of a hassle or a setback. There was one interesting one where the way to solve it was you walk up a screen, then you walk back down a screen, then you walk back up a screen, and I think it's like back down one more time. It's like, okay, so that would have been a little confusing. I'm glad that I just tried a few different things and actually got my way through pretty easily. So you get to the entrance of the next dungeon, and you read a sign there that says, be careful, this cave entrance is very fragile, like any disturbance, and it could come tumbling down. So you use your power bracelet to lift up a rock to get to the entrance, and the whole thing comes tumbling down. So, of course, now you have no entrance to this cave. It's completely obstructed. And this is actually where I messed up. This is actually where you read something that says, something in Nairu's house will help you. You go back to Nairu's house, and you do get the Harp of Ages, which now allows you to... you play it, and you now are allowed to be transported back into the past or back to the future, depending on where you are. So there's basically just little dirt patches in the floor, and you play the harp, and the patch will turn into a portal, and you use that portal, and you go back to the past. So I went back to the past, and I went back to the Deku Forest, which the past looks a lot more like dusty and gross, and like I have a feeling that it's not just because it's like the past and it's like not as pretty, but also because it's the past and Varen has been fucking with it.
Yeah.
So now the past is all messy. So you go back there and you are able to find the cave entrance again, which is blocked off again with it's obstructed with an actual rock wall now. So what happens is you walk through the forest a little bit more and you find the mystery seeds. Mm-hmm. So once you find the mystery seeds, there's a soldier that approaches you. And this soldier is like, oh, you found the mystery seeds. That's what Queen Ambi was looking for, who's the queen of this village. So he's like, I'm going to take you to her right away. The soldier takes you to Queen Ambi's palace and basically is like, oh, this boy found these really cool seeds. And she's like, will you give them to me? And you're like, okay, because you're Link and you're like innocent. And
Right.
like, here you go. And then it's revealed that Queen Ambi is being mind controlled by Nehru, who is now mind controlled by Varen. It's all very complicated.
It's 2 different dominating wills going on right there. That's crazy.
Right, but at least as a reward, the guard gives you some bombs as a exchange for the mystery seeds. So you do get the bombs, and you go back to that cave and you open it up, and now you are in the Wing Dungeon, which is the second dungeon that I had to face. The Wing Dungeon, I don't know why they called it that.
Is it shaped like a wing?
No, because the outside is just a stone, like it's a stone hut.
No, I mean the map itself of the dungeon.
It may have been. Maybe it was.
They tend to do that.
Yeah,
is
that's how it
if
was.
another name doesn't make sense, check the map. Because
Yeah.
there was like the key dungeon, which is like
Exactly
in the
like
shape of a key.
Yeah. It may have been shaped like a wing. I may have just missed that. But I thought this dungeon was cool. The first floor, like the first room that you enter, had spike beetles, which, as you know, like you can't flip over until you have a shield, which I'm really glad I invested in a shield, because otherwise I would have had to gone back, because you can't open the next room until you beat those beetles.
Those are one of my favorite enemies in the Game Boy Zelda series. It's just like a really good idea to have this monster that like you fight it by not being overly aggressive at the beginning. You have to. It creates a good difference of who is dictating the pace of your combat is when you have a multitude of enemies that will approach you and a multitude of enemies that like you have to approach and find the way to approach them.
Yeah.
So those are like my favorite enemies in Game Boy Zelda, I think.
Nice. It definitely adds a little bit more of a dynamic. I wonder, can you blow them up? Can you just blow them up like right away?
I'm not sure. I usually don't kill them. I usually just hit them with my shield and then like go on. I'm like, unless I absolutely have to get like an item or a chest to show up, I'll just leave them. They're just being around. They're
just guarding themselves.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm really glad that I got the shield, because I think if I didn't, I might have had to go back to the present, like gotten the shield and come all the way back. But this dungeon was cool. It had a lot of these like color-based puzzles, which I thought were really cool. There's like a little box that you have to flip around, and it's like there's different colors, and so like it's like you flip it and it's blue, you flip it one more time and it's yellow, then you flip it to like from the opposite side and it's red, and you have to flip it like just in right amount of times to like flip it into the whole socket where it fits, and then like it's supposed to be the certain according color. So it was like that one actually took me a little while, because I was like, what the fuck? How do I do this?
But it's a really good puzzle.
It was good. Yeah, I really like those puzzles actually, and didn't actually end up having too much trouble with it. You go to an underground part of the dungeon where you do find the Roc's Feather, which is a straight...
You already got the Roc's Feather?
Yep, that's a straight throwback to Link's Awakening, the first place where you find the Roc's Feather.
It's my favorite.
And it's such a great item for jumping over those gaps and everything.
It is my favorite item in any Zelda game, because it let me jump as Link before, like... He's a person. He can jump. Everybody else hops and jumps. Why can't I jump?
Right. Yeah, it makes little sense why Link can never jump until he has a feather to do so. But either way, you do find the Roc's Feather, and that presents room for more puzzles where there's a certain color on the ground, like there's a yellow square on the ground, and you use the Roc's Feather to jump on it from off of the square. So you have to jump directly onto the square without touching it first. You can't just hop on it, and it changes colors. So you have to do that a couple times to change colors to an according part of the room where there's another square that's the right color. So a lot of puzzles here actually, just on the second dungeon. And then we are also introduced, you said you were introduced in the first dungeon, but we see it here in the second, these mine carts, where you again have to jump on some things to flip switches so that an arm will come up so your minecart can go through, or you have to hit it while you're riding through.
I will definitely say I'm pretty sure your minecart puzzles in Oracle of Ages are going to be like 10 times more difficult. Mine was like a single switch gets you to where you need to go. If I remember correctly, you're right. You have to jump on the color thing, and you still have to worry about switches as well. It's insane.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And it's just the second dungeon, so I can only imagine it gets worse from here. But otherwise, it was really fun. I know that pretty much why I chose to play this game over Seasons was that it is more puzzle-based, and I love puzzles. I enjoy it quite a bit, and I know, Jack, that you have some qualms with puzzles sometimes.
No, I just don't think I'm smart enough sometimes to solve puzzles, and like when there is a puzzle that has like a really simple solution in a game and I spend so much time and then go, oh. I just feel so stupid.
Right. Honestly, like I just have an uninhibited mind most of the time, so I'm able to solve them pretty quickly. That's probably just a testament to my low intelligence modifier, but like it helps in the long run. So the final boss here was the Head Thwomp, which I thought was a pretty interesting boss. It's basically a thwomp that's floating mid-air, and it has 4 faces that continue to change, and there's like 4 like kind of platforms that rotate around it so you can jump on them. So I tried jumping on the platforms, and basically what happens is you have to drop a bomb into the top of the thwomp's head when it's on the red face. If you do it when it's on a different face, something bad happens, which is pretty much very avoidable but it's like it'll either shoot fireballs out of its head, or there'll be like little spinning like fire dots that go around it, or like if it's on purple, then like there will be rocks that are raining down from the roof. All of these three things are very avoidable and very easily avoidable because there's like you could get cover or you could just move out of the way and it's not going to hurt you. But I did find it kind of difficult to drop the bomb right at the right time. And I think the first time I was using the platforms that were spinning around it, and meanwhile it's also still like blowing stuff out of its at the top of its head, so you have to time it correctly. And then I was like dropping bombs from the top, and then sometimes it wouldn't work exactly right. And I was like, finally I came up with a different strategy, and I started on the side, and I just kind of like ran off the cliff and dropped a bomb at the same time. It worked a lot more effectively. So I ended up beating the head thwomp, but it did take me a couple attempts. And finally, with that done, I was awarded with another heart piece. And with, well, not a piece, it's an actual heart container.
Heart container, yeah.
And the second essence of time. And that was the second dungeon.
So what have been your essences of time? What are they called?
You know
Do
what?
they have names?
I feel like they did have something more specific, but I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to look here and see if there's anything. It had like kind of like a little phrase afterwards, but it didn't. I don't think it said anything like specifically. To
like mine that are like the fertile soil or the gift of time.
Yeah, it's very likely that there was that. I just wasn't paying attention, and I can't find it here.
That's fair.
Anywhere on like any resources yet. So
I do know I've been told to find a swamp.
Okay.
And that was the only hint I got. It didn't even tell me a direction. It's just in the swamp. It's like, thanks,
right,
old timer.
Yeah, somewhere in that swamp over there. Yeah, I know. And that's the thing is like I stopped playing after I found that thing that I can't even remember what it was. It's supposed to be next. So we'll just have to do some good old-fashioned exploration.
Oh yeah, I'm excited.
All right.
I can't wait to get one more season so I can just start manipulating them.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing that I really like about seasons is like you can, once you get all four, I know this for a fact, you can just cycle through them and see how they change like the area you're on initially, so you can really just like mess around and have a lot of fun.
That's really cool. I mean, honestly, I don't know how much it's going to change in ages. I mean, how many ages are you going to go through? I think it's pretty much past and present, so I think it's pretty much going to stay the same. Still definitely a lot that's going on with that, which is interesting, but I think it'll be pretty straightforward from here. But yeah, I like the first two dungeons, definitely. It presented a lot of interesting puzzles, and already got the Rock's Feather, which is nice, like we were saying. So we'll see how that goes. Any last final comments?
I'm just excited for next time.
Totally. Next time we will have, from Oracle of Ages, we will have the Moonlit Grotto and the Skull Dungeon. Ooh. And from Oracle of Seasons,
we're going to have the Poison Moth's Lair and the Dancing Dragon Dungeon.
Dude, okay. I was seriously, though, like, those just sound so much cooler.
Yeah, I mean...
He's like, yeah, there's no disputing it. Those just sound cooler. All right. Well, anyway, we'll see those next time. Thanks for listening, guys, and we're signing off.